Hello and welcome to Wingin It. So some more gameplay today. This is just another regular ELO game from the Tournaments Discord. And yeah, you'll see it's an okay start. Some good options in the tray particularly. Certainly more so than the starting hand, but I think there's enough here to work with. Certainly my kind of initial plan here. Definitely pick up that barn swallow. And then try and get this broad-winged hawk and potentially the vulture as well in the forest. That's just going to allow me to, get out to that 2 food per turn, and then hopefully potentially a point from the hawk as well. Kept the cowbird just really as something to tuck under the barn swallow, and hopefully I'll be able to find a nice wetland bird. Certainly that red-breasted merganser in the tray would be nice, but if I'm going to be taking the barn swallow, then I'd be expecting my opponent to deny that merganser. So obviously if it is still there when it comes to my second turn, then I'll be picking that up. But I think, still being able to get this barn swallow down and just having something to tuck and sort of cycle through, I quite like that as an option. I've done that in videos in the past where, you might not have a good wetland option, but I think certainly if you have one of these tuck and draw birds, so barn swallow is a great example, something like purple martin, house finch, American robin. I think if you can get any of those in your grasslands early on and have an extra card in your hand to just cycle through, then it shouldn't take too long before you do manage to find something that can go in your wetlands. So as planned, I do take the barn swallow and straight away reveal the snowy egret. So that's the kind of bird really that I'm looking for. It's not an amazing wetland bird, but 4 points or a single food, I can easily get that down. So as expected, like I was saying, my opponent does take the red-breasted merganser, so not too many surprises there. But I would be surprised certainly if they take the snowy egret this soon. I think whenever you do have a bird like the red-breasted merganser that just lets you look at extra cards, you're going to want to play that first before you go for extra cards. So that's what they've done here, obviously. It means I can lay eggs and tuck the cowbird. Now, I was kind of looking at that egret and thinking I could take it. However, the kind of plan that I've got in my head here is that, I can afford to spend a couple of turns maybe trying to get something better. Now, I do get the chickadee, which, I think ordinarily I would look at playing along with that broadwing hawk. I might still do, just because, again, it's that kind of second forest bird. It will get me out to 2 food. However, with the vulture not needing any food, it's a slightly shorter term game, being able to play the vulture a little bit quicker. Obviously, that chickadee I'd have to gain food first and then play it. So I think you find yourself in these kind of positions quite a lot in Wingspan, where you have to make a decision between shorter term benefits and longer term benefits. That's kind of the kind of question that I'm going to have to be weighing up in my own head when I'm deciding which of these to play. It comes back to my turn now, and my opponent has still left the egret there. So at this point, now I've got the extra egg space, having played the broadwing hawk, I know I can lay eggs and look to pick up that egret. So really the decision, as I said, is between do I keep the vulture or the chickadee, and I decide to keep the vulture. So that chickadee is going to get tucked and I can pick up that egret. And really, part of this, like I said, it's about this short-term tempo. But partly I also have my eye on this end of round, so I know now with 3 turns left, I can play the vulture, pick up food, and play the egret. Those are going to be my 3 turns. I think if I'd kept the chickadee, it would have just been a little bit slower. I would either have had to sacrifice not getting the chickadee down this round, and so that's delaying it even longer, or not playing the egret, and therefore not meeting this end of round goal, and potentially missing out on some points there. Now, all of that again goes out of the window because my opponent reveals Franklin's Gull, one of the strongest birds in the game, and really good pairing, particularly with the barn swallow, and certainly kind of bails me out a little bit because I have kind of neglected the wetlands a little bit here. Obviously, like I said, the plan was to get that egret down, but it's not the strongest of wetland birds. It gives you the option of at least getting that extra card by discarding eggs, but still doesn't get you access to that many cards. But yeah, really the only decision for me here is, do I pick up the Gull from my wetlands, or do I pick it up via tucking through the Barn Swallow? Now, it is a bit tricky here because I don't have the egg space to lay eggs, so I will miss out on a point if I do lay eggs. And as well, I am still kind of thinking about playing that egret potentially later in the game. You know, it's still 4 points for 1 food, and my food access I know isn't going to be that great if I'm only going to have the hawk and the vulture. But it also meets the bonus card, and I know, particularly for the next end of round goal, where I'm going to need to be getting eggs in all 3 habitats, I'll at least need something there. And yeah, if I can get something cheap that's going to get a few points, then that's going to be nice. Now, in picking up the Gull, I do reveal that blackbird, which is probably the perfect partner for this Gull in the grasslands. Just being able to turn those excess cards that you draw into tuck cards for points and eggs for even more points. So I think my opponent quite sensibly picks that up. It's a fairly straightforward denial, but equally it might be something that works out for them. You know, with their current wetlands, with that Merganser, they're going to be seeing a lot of cards. So yeah, if they can, you know, maybe play that blackbird either in the wetlands or in the grasslands and turn some of those cards into points like I would have planned to do myself, then I think that would not be a bad option. So yeah, my option really on that turn was, you know, do I still go for this end of round goal, or do I try and get this vulture down and go for more food? And yeah, in the end I do play the egret. Yeah, I could see my opponent didn't have any eggs and they just played a bird, so there was no chance of them being able to get that second wetland bird down. So it made sense, I think, for me to go for the tie. Now, I was feeling pretty happy with the Franklin's Gull, and then the round 2 tray appears and hands my opponent the Raven. So I know it's going to be a bit more of a fair fight now. These kind of games are always really interesting, I think, when one player has the Gull and the other has the Raven, because both of you suddenly have really good access to one resource, be that cards or food, and maybe not such good access to the other. I think potentially that would have been a stronger position for my opponent, just because of their wetlands to support that Raven. However, there are some really nice options in the tray. So for me, I was already looking at that red start. That's going to allow me to get extra food from the bird feeder when I gain food. But the Eastern Phoebe, I think, is just such a good pairing with the Gull, and also works quite well as a counter against the Raven. So there are a few of these kind of co-op food birds, Phoebe being a good example, and the hummingbirds as well, that give food to your opponents as well as you. And ordinarily, these can be quite risky birds to work with, I feel, because, you know, obviously you're helping yourself and you're getting yourself food, perhaps while laying eggs or taking bird cards and saving yourself trips to the bird feeder. But you always have to be conscious of the fact that you're going to be giving food to your opponent as well. Now, when your opponent has a Raven, you don't have to worry so much about that, because really, you know, with a Raven, they're going to be getting all the food they need. So if I'm giving them the occasional extra food, I don't think that's really too much of a big deal. So yeah, I think I could have gone for the red start, and certainly that would help me get more food in the forest. But yeah, I think trying to get this Phoebe down, and it just helps the tempo as well. So, you know, I've got the fish on the reroll, which is quite nice. I can discard a card and get the cherry, and that just means that I can look to play the Phoebe with the cherry, and then when I lay eggs, it's going to give me the worm that's going to allow me to play this Franklin's Gull. And, you know, tempo, I think, particularly in the early to mid game, is so important. If you can take these actions in the right order in order to save yourself turns from having to gain food or pick up bird cards when it's not optimal for you to do so, then that's just going to help you out so much. So I think some players might have looked at that as the obvious play is to get the Gull down. You know, obviously a really strong bird, get this down as soon as possible. But then you don't have food to play the Phoebe. And so you might have to spend an extra turn gaining food from that really weak forest just to get the Gull down. But this way of doing it, I can get the Phoebe down. And now, not only do I get an extra turn laying eggs here for more points, I can use the Barn Swallow, cycle through this Foe Swift that I'm not going to be looking to play. And yeah, Phoebe obviously giving the worm to get this Franklin's Gull down as soon as possible. Now, obviously, as I said before, my opponent, I think they're in a pretty strong position here. So, they certainly have better access to cards than I have to food. So their wetlands, like I mentioned with that red-breasted merganser, it's just going to help them see so many more cards. And you definitely need a wetlands like that when you're working with a Raven. You can get all the food that you want through the Raven, but if you don't draw the right cards to play to use that food from the Raven, that food isn't going to get you anywhere. So obviously, something like the Franklin's Gull is going to work really well with the Raven, but that really strong wetlands, and particularly if you compare it with a tuck and draw bird, so like the barn swallow that I've got, something like that works really well with the Raven because you can cycle through cards, you can find those big point birds or nice grassland engine birds that you want to be playing, and at the same time you're laying eggs and scoring points and getting the food to play them. So yeah, on that last turn I did manage to get the Gull down, and it's quite a nice pickup, I think. The grasshopper sparrow, it eats the food that the Phoebe's giving me. It's that 4th grassland bird, just extends my grasslands out, gets me extra eggs, but obviously that brown power on the sparrow itself is also going to give me extra eggs, so that's always nice. It's going to help for the 3rd end of round goal as well with all those birds in the grasslands. So yeah, that felt like a pretty straightforward play for me. And yeah, as we're kind of in this mid game now, really, like I said, the plan is just to try and find birds with the Gull. Use that power, discard the eggs, get the extra cards, use the barn swallow as well, tuck some of those cards that maybe I'm not looking to play, and hopefully pick up some other ones that I would be looking to play. So yeah, really it's just about finding those big point birds, and then if they eat worms, perfect, I've got that from the Phoebe. If they don't, I can perhaps look at gaining food, and that's where something like the red star comes in. So yeah, I think that's why on this turn I did go for eggs rather than play the grasshopper sparrow. I just thought it might be a good idea to try and get this red star down sooner rather than later. Obviously I can overpay a little bit just by using 3 worms from the Phoebe, which yeah, I think is what I'll be planning on doing. Now, great egret in the tray, that's a really good option to have. I think probably would have been a better option for my opponent because, yeah, when they can get so much more food, and certainly the 2 fish and the rodent really easy to get with something like the Raven. Yeah, I think it would have worked, like I say, better for my opponent, but certainly not a bad option for me to have. And, it pairs well with both those cards in the tray, the night heron and the spoonbill. I think whenever you can use the egret with another big point wetland bird, that's always good, and obviously works with the bonus card. Already managed to get 5 platform nests down, so yeah, if I can play the egret, that's going to be really nice for the bonus card. So yeah, quite surprisingly, my opponent chose not to pick up birds. Like I said, I think both of those wetland options were really good for me, but actually really good for my opponent as well. So yeah, if I can do a spoonbill and egret double play in the wetlands, that's going to be very nice for me. So now this is the turn where I look to try and get something down in the forest, and actually just with that extra turn, laying eggs and getting the worm from the Phoebe, it meant I could do this double play with the house wren as well. So this was a particularly nice option for me to have, just because by having 3 forest birds now, I have the option of discarding cards for an extra food. And you can see just from all these turns activating the Gull, I've picked up so many extra cards that I'm not really going to look to play. I've got the meadowlark, I've got the magpie, I've got a couple of other options in there that really don't work with this setup, and they're not birds that I'm going to be looking to play. So by allowing myself the option of turning those into a resource that I need, which is food, then that's going to help, because suddenly I will be able to get this double play with the egret and the spoonbill that much quicker. So I do go for food here. Obviously the rodent in the feeder already was nice, and that was just a dream reroll pretty much, getting the extra fish that I needed. Obviously one more fish for the spoonbill would have been nice, but yeah, getting 2 fish on the reroll is not that expected. So that was nice. And the way that I managed to take food there, I've set myself up nicely to potentially go for another reroll. And that's something you always have to have in mind, particularly playing against a Raven opponent. They're never going to be gaining food. Obviously, that Raven is going to give them all the food they need to play pretty much any bird they want. There's going to be no need for them to activate their forest. And that means you have entire control over the bird feeder. So that can be a blessing, but it can also be a curse. So if the bird feeder sets itself up badly in a way that you might not want any of the food there, that's not going to help you. But for me, this worked out really well because it meant I could go for that reroll pretty easily, and even more fish, a couple more fish in the bird feeder. So yeah, that just allowed me to grab all the food really that I needed to do this double play that I was talking about. So certainly having that third forest bird for the discard, and then obviously the red start's power as well, really beneficial for me there to be able to get all this extra food. And yeah, I've now got the food for the double play. I can look to do that in this last round. Helps the bonus cards, helps for the final end of round goal, and yeah, that spoonbill is going to give me another bonus card, and I feel like I'm in a strong position to score well from that bonus card. Whenever you've got 3 star nests, and obviously the option for a 4th in my hand with that magpie, any of those nest bonus cards, the lower threshold of 4 points is going to be pretty straightforward to meet. So yeah, that's always a good feeling. So I do play the Grasshopper Sparrow finally, probably a little bit later than I would have liked to. Obviously I did pick up that bird quite a bit early in the game, sometime in round 2, but yeah, it's still good to get down here. I know I'm going to be laying eggs at least a few more times, not just for the points, but also these end of round goals. So I can certainly make a few points back off that sparrow, and it helps me tie this end of round goal. So my opponent, I just flicked quickly over to their board. They had got the 4 birds, but they didn't have any food, so I knew that there was no chance of them playing another bird there. So another good tray here in round 4. I think that whooping crane is a good option, but yeah, it's kind of a tricky position for my opponent, I think, just because they don't have one of these tuck and draw birds in this final round. If they want more birds, they have to spend a turn drawing cards in their wetlands, and for me, I like to avoid doing that as much as possible. I think when you are in this late game, you should try and reserve as many of your turns as possible for scoring points. So whether that's playing birds or laying eggs, that should be your target. Spending a turn scoring 0 points to pick up birds, it always feels a little bit of a waste. So yeah, not too surprising really on this turn that they choose not to take the crane, but it's something that I might still look at. I've got plenty of food in my hand. Obviously the Phoebe's going to help get me a few more. So and it's not a huge point scoring grasslands. At the moment I get 4 eggs just from laying the eggs. I get another one from the sparrow, and then a tuck card on the swallow. So that's 6 points. If I can play something like the whipping crane, that's potentially going to score me more with another bonus card. So yeah, I felt that was a pretty straightforward decision. So this is the turn we go for the double play, egret and spoonbill. And yeah, really, like I said, it's just all about hoping for a nice bonus card. And it's not a bad one. Omnivore Expert, probably the best bonus card in the game. So it is a bit of a shame to only be scoring 2 points from that. But, with the whooping crane, I can look to play that. And that's going to get a couple of extra points. And yeah, suddenly that whooping crane on its own, even after the egg cost, that's going to score me 6 points with the omnivore bonus, which matches what I could do laying eggs anyway. So yeah, even if I draw a blank on the bonus, I'm not going to be any worse off playing the crane. So that's yeah, pretty much a no-brainer to still play that. And yeah, I might have a better chance at getting an even better bonus card in that position. So I do have to just pay a little bit of attention here on this end of round goal. My opponent has played a couple of birds that are going to qualify. So the Clark's Grebe on that past turn with the star nest does bring them a little bit closer in terms of the platform nest spaces. So I do have to kind of pay attention here and make sure that I'm filling up as many of these spaces as possible. But this end of round really synergized well with my bonus card, and for me, I think that can play a little bit into your decision making when picking a bonus card at the start. If you see that one of the end of round goals is a nest type that matches one of your bonus cards, then you can, for the same amount of effort, score points from a bonus card and potentially an end of round goal as well. So that's always a nice option. But yeah, I think the platform builder, I was always going to keep that just based on the birds in my starting hand, and it's a reasonably good bonus card. You know, pretty straightforward, I think, to meet that lower threshold in most cases and get those 4 points. So we come to the penultimate turn here, and this is the turn that I get the Whooping Crane down. So yeah, like I said, it's still going to score me points, but gives me the chance at even more points, hopefully, from a nice bonus card. And it is a really nice bonus card. That's kind of what I was looking for, I think, from the Spoon Bill. Fishery Manager, 8 points. Yeah, when you can score that many points from a bonus card that you haven't been working towards, it's always nice. And yeah, I think for me, that kind of capped off a really nice game. You know, being able to score big points there from the bonus card, made up certainly from maybe not scoring too highly from the Omnivore Specialist. And yeah, I still have this one final turn. I know my opponent will have laid eggs and filled up as many of their platform nest spaces as possible, but I still have this last turn. I can lay eggs, I can fill up all my spaces, get the extra one from the Sparrow, obviously skip these powers I don't need, and get the final tuck. And that's just such a nice feeling. I've not had too many extra cards at the end. I don't feel like I've wasted turns using the Gull. So here we go now into the final scores, and yeah, I feel pretty confident. I don't think my opponent got too many big point birds down, so we do come out level there, 41 each. But look at all those bonus cards. Obviously some nice pulls at the end there, definitely helped me. Scored strongly in the end of our own goals as well, and I know I'm going to get quite a lot from eggs and tucks here as well. Accidentally skipped to the final score before the tucks count up, but there we go. It is a win in the end, 109 points to 87, and yeah, that felt good. Like I said, lots of big point birds, some good bonus cards, and I felt like I had a well-run engine. And my opponent, I think they played pretty well. Certainly some nice plays in there. I think the Blackbird certainly was a good pickup for them. That worked well. I perhaps made a bit of a mistake not denying the Night Heron. Certainly that helped score some big points, as I talked about when it was in the tray. But really, I think kind of the problem for them was just struggling for that consistent card draw. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that video. I think it's always nice to see a showdown of sorts between Franklin's Gull and the Raven. Always feels like a bit more of a fair fight than if only one player has one of these birds. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.